Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships, question mark. Welcome to Development Blog. I just got home from work, and I had time to just record a short video real quick to talk about Wargaming's newest, dumbest idea. And that being automatic anti-submarine warfare for aircraft carriers, and that's going to happen in closed testing. And I cannot tell you how immensely stupid and dumb this is for several reasons. So this video is basically me voicing my displeasure. So maybe perhaps an opinion is heard to Wargaming. So a closed testing session for the concept of automated anti-submarine weapons for aircraft carriers will take place in the near future. All Tier 6 aircraft carriers and up will receive depth charge airstrike. It'll work automatically in a similar way to the carrier's damage control party, and the player will not be able to use it manually. I mean, imagine having to put out a fire or a flood manually. That'd be the worst for an aircraft carrier player to have to do that. The depth charge airstrike grants aircraft carriers a means to defend themselves against submarines while not providing the means to seek them out and damage them in an offensive capacity. I mean, I'm pretty sure all around the depth charge airstrike is pretty much, I mean, you almost have to use it as a defense. Like, it's hard to get an offensive strikes off, which, I mean, you can if a submarine gets spotted by maybe a fellow comrade, fellow teammate, and you're able to drop depth charges on them. But, I mean, really it's just to defend yourself, and even if you get multiple airstrikes dropped on an enemy submarine, it still doesn't kill them. The airstrike will be triggered if a submarine is detected within the airstrike's range, or if signs of its presence are present, such as oil slicks on the water or the sonar ping effect, which, both of these you can see on the surface of the water, if the submarine is at least surfaced or very close for the sonar ping. Based on this, an approximate lead will be automatically calculated and airstrike will be subsequently triggered. The submarine will have the opportunity to evade the attack if evasive maneuvers are taken at the right time. I really don't get this for multiple reasons, and I think a lot of people are already voicing some pretty good opinions in the World of Warships community right now. Mainly is because of how this class, aircraft carriers, are the most overpowered class in the game. Like, period. Like, you can't deny that. Their spotting is just huge in how much it takes away from maybe some strategic gameplay, and how you might move up. You get caught out alone. You just get soloed out by aircraft carrier. I mean, aircraft carrier, I dislike that class the most in the game for those reasons and multiple more. But to give aircraft carriers another way where it's automatically protecting them with the depth charge airstrike is just dumb. I mean, like, and specifically when they're saying, it works similarly to the aircraft carrier's damage control party. I mean, the damage control party that is active for like a minute, where a submarine can't even get a lock on a aircraft carrier for the whole duration of that damage control party being active. The same class where you can only have a fire ticking on an aircraft carrier for like 3 to 5 seconds, whatever it is, and then it automatically gets put out regardless, because we all know in real life, in World War I, well, I guess more or less World War II, that aircraft carriers had like the best damage control party. I mean, none ever sank by burning, none ever sank by, maybe something exploding, like a detonation happening inside the carrier, which, if you didn't know, carriers cannot detonate in World of Warships. I mean, this class is just like Wargaming's precious child, like precious baby, and they keep babying it more and more and more, babysitting the class. I was wondering how much Wargaming was going to babysit the introduction of their new class of submarines, and they've done that to an extent. But I mean, there's nothing that compares to babysitting a class like they do with aircraft carriers. I mean, it's just it's mind blowing, because literally the skill floor, the skill level for players who play aircraft carrier players doesn't have to be very high. I mean, one of the things that I find most fascinating about aircraft carriers is this isn't, now understand this isn't like a negative diss that I'm attacking people who play aircraft carriers. I play them from time to time occasionally. But for those who play aircraft carriers, they have all the time to look at their mini map, and they'll be sitting on a flank, and their team has completely collapsed on that flank, and they decide at the last possible second to leave that flank and die instantly, even though they refuse to look at the mini map. I mean, it's just crazy. But I mean, all these additional things of how to protect aircraft carriers in the game it's just mind-boggling. Like, you know, so for example, you take this. Let's talk about at the beginning when they introduced submarines in the game. There was like actually I think maybe even like half the ships in the game had anti-submarine warfare capabilities on their ship. And then a lot of players are salty about that. A lot of the community had an uproar about that. So then they added most all ships in the game have anti-submarine warfare in some sort of fashion, whether they launch off the front of your ship, the rear of your ship, or launch into the sky like a flare behind your ship and then crash into the water behind you. But then now, what about Dutch cruisers? Dutch cruisers have no way of protecting themselves from this class. So your argument is that the depth charge airstrike grants aircraft carriers a means to defend themselves against submarines. Okay, why can't Dutch cruisers defend themselves? If this is the argument you're going to make for aircraft carriers in the game. I was playing, Wargaming had, not too long ago, they had on the public test server, I think they did this on purpose. They were testing, you know, of course, continuing trying out some things with submarines in the game. And then you got so many community tokens for playing submarines. And then you got so many community tokens if you got, I think, so much X amount of base XP playing Dutch cruisers. So me and my clanmates, 3 of us were on public test server playing. We all took out the Golden Lion, I'm just going to call it that, the tier 10 Dutch cruiser. And all 3 of us got nuked by 1 submarine. Like, literally, there's nothing we could do. We maneuvered, we used our rudder shift, we used damage control party effectively, but each of us got nuked by this 1 submarine, and all of us have a run rate of 50% or higher. Like, I think, you know, mine being even over 60%, and there's nothing we could do. We were just defenseless against this submarine who was just harassing us through these ships. So, you know, so that you can't make that argument, but yet you refuse to deny giving depth charge airstrikes to other ships in the game that simply don't have them. Like, that's just not fair. That's, you're babying your aircraft carriers. Like, that's literally what this is about. And so they tried to sugarcoat it with like, well, not providing them the means to seek them out and damage them in an offensive capacity. Like, I don't know. It's just dumb. Yeah, there's a lot of these dumb ideas Wargaming's been introducing with submarines lately. I mean, even the support carriers that we had back in March, which for the time being they've abandoned. And if you didn't quite catch this, this basically was like support carriers that would be, they focused around supporting your team, but they could drop, okay, get it, stun bombs and temporarily block the use of certain consumables by said ship, such as the damage control party, defensive AA, or smoke generator. So you could stack these stun bombs and you could knock out a damage control party on the ship for minutes. So then how is that player supposed to counter submarines in the game? I mean, it's just very, very disapproving of this. Wargaming, you can do better than this. Now, a lot of you can be saying, well, or, you know, you might be saying it's just a closed test. I mean, granted, we never saw support carriers come into the game, right? But because we know of Wargaming's past, that basically whenever they are showing these things, you have to jump on it immediately. Because if no one says anything about these type of changes, these dumb changes possibly happening in the game, then Wargaming is just going to go for it. So you have to voice your displeasure from the get-go because this is just dumb. And reaffirms a lot of the attitudes and mindsets that players have regarding aircraft carriers in the game. I could probably do a whole video on that. I mean, when you have a carrier dies on the enemy team and your whole, like, essentially your whole team in chat is like celebrating the fact that the aircraft carrier died, you know, much more so than even a submarine, and still people celebrate that submarines die. Back in the RTS days of World of Warships, I mean, you'd have a team tell the enemy team where their aircraft carrier was, and they'd kind of park the way and just let an enemy ship go in and sink it. I mean, the majority of the player base does not like aircraft carriers in World of Warships for multiple reasons, and they're just an overpowered class, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop the video there, but I just wanted to voice my opinion that I think this is really dumb. You can let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you think this is a good thing in the game, I would like to know your opinion. I don't expect everyone to disagree with me or agree with me, but if you have some reasoning or your thoughts, but it's not, one overpowered class, and it's not fair to Dutch cruisers in the game who do not have any chances defending themselves. And I speak from, personal experience. When you have three Dutch cruisers get wrecked by one submarine and there's nothing you can do, like, kind of a defensive class against the submarine in that case. So maybe if it wasn't automated, so instead of just criticizing this, you're asking Flimsy, well, what would you suggest? Well, maybe if it was a manual ASW for aircraft carriers, that I would actually say I'd be cool with that, because then that means that aircraft carrier players aren't flying, and with their stupid level of being able to spot across the map so quickly, killing strategic plays, it would force, quote unquote, if the aircraft carrier player is aware that there's a submarine around, it'd force them to have to not be playing their planes as much and trying to focus on taking out the submarines that are hunting them. Because that's one thing that I like about the introduction of submarines right now in the game, is that you're seeing a kind of a growing number of submarine players who go and hunt the enemy aircraft carrier player and will just like one-shot him and kill him. Like, if I see, like, yeah, I'm not gonna go into that, but that's like fantastic. I think that's very nice. If you are a submarine player who does that, my hat's off to you for if you sail across into our spawn and kill the enemy, our aircraft carrier player who hasn't moved the entire game, sitting in the same position. Good for you. But yeah, so it's just wargaming catering to this class of overpowered ships in the game that still need overpowered and has such a low skill floor level to play in the game compared to the RTS aircraft carriers, which had a very high skill level to play. And you rarely saw aircraft carriers, this is what veterans in the community tell me, but you would rarely see aircraft carriers in the game during the RTS days just because they had a very high skill floor level. And it was very difficult to play them. And now to make the numbers look better, Wargaming had the CV rework that happened right as I started playing in the game, to cater more to this class and making money for their games. So Wargaming, if you're listening, you can do better than this. This isn't the route to go, with just making more automated things and protecting CVs. I mean, it's rather apparent between them not hardly flooding at all, not being able to set a fire for just a few seconds, a 1 minute activation time on a damage control party, not being able to detonate aircraft carriers. I mean, really? I mean, can you make it more obvious that you're trying to protect your precious class? So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.